Global warming became a major topic around 30 years ago, in the 1970s. As Earth's temperature increased, scientists began to worry about the increase of CO2 in the atmosphere heating the planet. But then they discovered that this global warming was causing more problems than just the increase of temperature. They realized that the entire Earth's climate was being affected by this increase of CO2, and one part of that is the ocean acidification. Well, when CO2 enters the atmosphere, around 30 to 40% of it mixes and reacts with the ocean. The rest remains in the air or is used for other purposes, such as plants converting it into oxygen, or organisms forming shells. The CO2 inside the ocean then reacts and mixes with the ocean. This causes and decreases in pH. While only a small amount, this still shows that the ocean is acidifying. Water has a pH of 7, neutral. The ocean has always had a slightly more basic pH, that of 8.2, but recently its pH has gone down, or acidified, due to the increase of CO2. Keep in mind that the pH scale is in factors of tens, thus going from 8 to 7 is increasing the acidity by 10 times its normal amount. Going from 8 to 6 means that 10 times 10, ergo 100 times, increase of acidity. Thus, 8.2 to 8.1 is a much larger increase than it sounds. pH stands for potential to make hydrogen atoms. This means that an increase of acidity means more concentrated hydrogen in the ocean. During the 1750s, leading up to the 1990s, there has been an increase of 30% of hydrogen concentration. As the CO2 enters the water from the air and begins a chemical reaction, H2O plus CO2, which equals H2CO2, or carbonic acid, then each carbonic molecule can remove one hydrogen ion to become a bicarbonate, and then break down even further to become a carbonate ion. You get these by removing hydrogens, releasing them into the water, and thus increasing the acidity of the ocean, due to an even higher concentration of hydrogen. Thus, a cycle is formed, as the CO2 is created, and the 30 to 40% of it enters the ocean, reacting with the water and releasing the hydrogens, thus increasing the acidity of the water. This, however, isn't the main problem. It's how fast this is occurring that brings the issue. This increase in rate of acidification mirrors the end of the Paleocene, where this increase of CO2 caused a mass extinction, especially within the ocean. As evidenced within geology, ocean acidity can lead to the destruction of biodiversity. These lead to drops of metabolic rate, destruction of immune systems against viruses and parasites, and can, through chemical reaction, destroy or bleach coral through reduction of carbonate ions. To show this, we need to look at some more chemistry. Many organisms within the ocean use a special material called calcium carbonate. It's formed by adding calcium ions to carbonate ions. These form the exoskeletons of corals, crabs, and other mollusks. Hydrogen ions complicates this, however, as the carbonate ions are mixing with those very active hydrogens, and thus forming less calcium carbonate for the creatures to use. Thus, they will not be able to create or repair their skeletons. Even microscopic creatures, such as foraminifera and coccolithophores, are affected. They too form shells the same way as the larger creatures. The coccolithophores are even more important. As plants, they are responsible for the creation of phytoplankton. Thus, the decrease in ocean pH will cause an even bigger effect upon the ecosystem. These little organisms also assist in the formation of clouds by releasing a special chemical. A reduction in these creatures leads to the reduction in cloud cover, and can thus a lack of protection from the sun. Experiments have been conducted to conclude that an increase of CO2 above a tank of seawater will dissolve the shells of those creatures, both big and small. While the results are variable, it even showed effects on creatures with protective skin, such as starfish and sea urchins. Especially affected were the larvae of these creatures, which are a form of plankton, and everyone is aware of how crucial plankton is to the oceanic food web. Fish and squid can also be affected by an increase of CO2 within one's body. Ocean acidity can even affect the auditory effects of water, which affects creatures such as whales and dolphins, who use echolocation to find it increasingly difficult to speak or locate other of its kind around. Sea plants, such as seagrass, do better when there's more CO2 in the ocean. These plants allow for food and breeding homes for all manners of creatures. However, this is questionable whether these small benefits outweigh the cascade of issues that the CO2 increase causes within the ocean. Clearly, life in the sea is an important necessity for the plants to regulate life. The vast amounts of CO2 entering the ocean is slowly causing these cycles that allowed life to begin within its waters to deteriorate. The crabs, corals, and microscopic plankton are slowly becoming more vulnerable as they lose their shells and skeletons. The increase of pH in the ocean threatens all life both in and out of it. The evidence shows that the ocean is slowly acidifying, and if nothing is done, then we are doomed to lose all life within the ocean.